Hey, thank you for joining another episode of Celeste the Therapist podcast. I have a special guest who comes in every single month, and we talk about getting your mind right. It's not about what to tell you what to do, but to kind of help you process some things that you may not be clear about. So I'm going to have him introduce himself to you all. Can you introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Yes, my name is Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant with a practice based around a DISC assessment. And the whole premise is self-awareness without judgment. So we kind of figure out how we do things and how we interact with people, how we deal with problems, how we our best communicative styles. So when we find ourselves stuck in different situations, whether it be professionally, personally, even romantically, we can figure out how we do stuff. And if we don't quite like where we are, we can put systems in place to help get us to a place where we are more okay with it. And all that is based around the DISC assessment, which shows a very detailed look at how we operate and how we do things.
Yes, and for I have really loyal listeners who know who you are, and why it's important to be mindful of the judgment piece. But can you just kind of reiterate that for people, because it's an important reminder? Because you always say that self-awareness without judgment, but why is that important?
Yeah, because when we get hung up on good, bad, right, wrong, that can become really counterproductive to what's happening. So I like to just say, let's not remove if you're social or not as social, if you're maybe direct or a little reserved, if you're really systems based, if you're fly by the seat of your pants, rather than look at if that's a good or bad way to be. Let's just establish what is. Let's just do a diagnostic of how we operate as individuals. The judgment part is really irrelevant. It's about figuring out who we are, what our strengths are, and how to tap into those, as opposed to looking at maybe what we should, quote unquote, should or shouldn't be doing, or how that sort of stuff. That's just not really productive to me. So if I know how I operate, I'm going to work within how I operate to the maximum ability, rather than well, this is good or this is bad or this is right. Like that just, to me, just doesn't seem to, it's just not helpful.
It's not. And then the diagnostic piece, when you say we do a diagnostic, you're referring to the DISC assessment, and the DISC assessment will tell people what it does for them.
Yeah, so it gives them a very clear understanding of how they are. So we have judgments on how we should or shouldn't be, or society will tell us, this is what it deems as the best way to do something. The reality of it is a truck is a truck, a car is a car, a motorcycle is a motorcycle. If you want to make the argument that a truck is better than a car or a motorcycle is better than a skateboard, that's your preference. But let's just establish what something is. So if with the assessment, this particular version, it shows, how we attack problem solving. Are we more direct? Are we more reserved? Do we defer to others? Okay, that's just how we do things. Are we people who really engage and have a lot of emotional and social energy? Or are we a little more, in our head, kind of sit back, observe the room, see what's going on? Either way works. It's the diagnostic just shows this is how we operate. And if we don't know how we are, it's going to be very difficult to make those changes and get us in a position where we want to be, because we don't even know how we got there. So at least if we know how we got here, and then the mode of transportation it took to get there, if you're trying to put a plan together that you're trying to cover enough distance that you can get there in a car, but you can't get there on a bike, but you're on a bike, you need to set a plan together for the bike. You know what I mean? Like, instead of, a lot of us, we try to put a plan together for a mode of transportation that we do not travel in. So someone will tell you, you need to be super social, but that is not you in any way, shape, or form. So let's put the plan together that is you. Maybe you're an analytics person. Maybe you're going to get there by crunching numbers. You're going to get there by being in the lab doing research. Some people, that's the last thing in the world they want to do. They're going to get by on their charisma, personality, and that sort of stuff. Well, then let's tap into that. Let's figure out what mode of transportation you're traveling on, and then operate accordingly. So the diagnostic shows how we're traveling, and instead of if we should or shouldn't be in another mode of transportation. Me and these
analogies. Yes, I love that. And just a real live example for people. I have two young kids that are complete opposites. My daughter is literally me, and my son is literally his dad. And my son is very quiet and reserved, but he's very smart. he keeps in a lot, he takes in a lot of information. And I recognize that they have the pleasure of having a mom as a therapist. So they're pretty in touch with their emotions. And one day he came to me and said, Mom, his name is JP, my daughter's Bella. Mom, why am I not like Bella? Why am I so shy? And I said to him, I mean, like, thank God he had language to even like understand that he was struggling with the fact that he felt different. But then I was able to help him see that you are who you are and it's okay. She just happens to be that way and that's okay. But what tends to happen is that most times people are looking at the way other people are presenting and struggling with the way they're presenting instead of saying like, that's who they are. And that's, and for me, and recently my daughter, I said to her, you got to work a little bit harder. Your brother can just like do the math in his head. You got to write it down. And she said, so am I supposed to be like him? I said, no. And you got two people wondering if they need to be like each other. But, you know, they're 10 and 9 and have language to understand that that's where their mind is going. But then I can help reframe that for them. Most of us have not had that reframing. Most of us have just looked at our environment and have struggled with not like being the same when we're all different. You understand what I mean?
Oh, definitely. And usually that pops up with siblings.
Yeah.
You know, why can't you be like your sister? You know, how come you can't be like your brother? You know, he never gives me problems. You always got to say something, you know, or your sister is captain of this and leading this. And why aren't you more social like her? And everyone tries to say, this is the mode of transportation we're supposed to take. And you're like, I have no desire to be in a race car. I want to be a pickup truck. I want to be a Jeep. I want to be rollerblades. I want to be, this is the mode that I want to operate in this life in. This is the way I want to travel down this road. And it's great that your children have such awareness and language, because that's a big part of it. You know, without getting too deep, that's why I think literacy is so important when it comes to these things, because the higher your vocabulary, the more language that you have, the more crayons you have to use when it comes to identifying emotion. When we lack language, we're operating with less crayons. And so, you know, where we're calling something yellow when it's actually green because we don't have green in our crayon box. So the more language we have, the more we could, no, that's actually, I'm actually yellow. Like I'm not, you know, I mean, I'm not depressed. I'm actually kind of melancholy. Like I'm not angry. I'm frustrated. Like, and so, but a lot of that comes with someone else. And I always use someone, they as in our parents, they as in our neighbors, they as in our community, they as in social media, they as in whatever. They will constantly try to tell us how we're supposed to be. You're supposed to be outgoing. You're supposed to be serious. You're supposed to be a good student. Like, you're supposed to care about school. No, you're supposed to, you care about what you care about. You're good at what you're good at. And so rather than beat yourself up or trying to fit this circle into a square peg, or be frustrated at all the ways you're not like your little sister or you're not like your big brother, let's just figure out what crayons are in your box. Who are you? What are your strengths? And then move from that position.
And I'm telling you, my people listening, life looks different when you are able to be okay with the skateboard because you don't want the car, being okay with the Jeep because you don't want the motorcycle. I hope, like, the analogies you gave around the car and the crayons is so like on point. I hope people can take that and really allow it to like penetrate and resonate if you find yourself kind of struggling in this area.
Yeah, the language part is important. I think
naming it.
Naming is huge. And so why it's important, I always liken it to children. So anybody who has had young children, before they can start formulating words and really address in language what's going on with them, when they're trying to get your attention, when they're trying to speak to you, and the language they're using, they realize is not hitting. So they'll start off by making noises. Then they may kind of wince and whine. Then they start yelling. Then they start banging on stuff. Then they start throwing things. Then they start doing all these things because of that frustration of, I'm trying to tell you what's going on with me and we're not communicating. Like, we're not vibing right now. That is a practice that carries over into adulthood. If we don't have the language to express what it is we're saying, I'm talking to you, but what I'm saying and what you're hearing is not connecting. So it turns into somebody saying, they'll tell you what's going on with them, but they're yelling yellow, but what you need to hear is green, but they don't know green. So they say yellow and it doesn't hit your radar. They shout yellow, it doesn't hit your radar. Now they're throwing stuff screaming yellow. They're disconnecting, they're walking out. They're doing all these things because they don't have the language to address green. And then it's like, oh, you meant green. Oh, now I can address what it is that you're frustrated or upset about, because now we're meeting there. But yeah, that same practice of when we're not being heard or we lack language or that connection to really the language of what's going on with us. Yeah, that starts as children, but we hold on to that as adults. That's why being self-aware, and not only being aware of what we're feeling, but being aware of the fact of if we do or do not have the language to express it, and being aware of how we express it when we do. That's why I said not looking at it as right or wrong, good or bad, is what is it? Like, what do I do? How am I operating? And then look at, is this an effective way that I'm doing it? Not good or bad. Now, you shouldn't do it like this. I'm not worried if you should or shouldn't. Is the way you're doing it getting the results that you want? If we come back with a no, then let's go back to the lab and let's figure out a way to address that. If you say that by me whispering what I want gets me what I want, then keep whispering. Whisper away. If you're saying that, by doing A gets you B and B's where you want to be, then be all right. But if you're A and you're trying to get to B and you Xing and L's and Z's and everywhere but where you want to be, well, then let's figure out something to get you to B.
Yes, I love that. And for people watching me on YouTube, you can see I got a motion chart behind me. And I got smaller versions for my kids because I do believe when we're able to name what's happening, sometimes we can't help it. We can't change it because circumstances happen, life happens, where things that we had no control over. But then it's like we continue to sit and stew in something that we don't have a name for. And I say, if I went to the doctor and I'm just bleeding out of control and the doctor don't know what to do, don't have a name for it, I'm going to freak out. Right. Yeah. But if there's a prognosis, I might still be bleeding, but if there's a prognosis and I understand, okay, this is what's happening to me, I can calm my mind down. Right. Yeah. And really begin to work on a plan. The doctor can work on a plan when they figure it out. When you understand what you're going through, you can actually work on a plan. And even if that plan is not going to be resolved tomorrow, you will be surprised at how much more settled your spirit can feel by knowing that you're working on it. Not working on it, that inaction keeps you in a state of anxiety.
I think so too. And I think it's a big difference with that language part is it's a difference of saying, I have pain in my abdomen versus I don't feel good. So if you come to somebody, I don't feel good. You got a headache, sore throat, stomach, I don't feel good. I get that, but I can't do anything with that. And so when we can name it and say, I don't feel good, what does that mean? I feel a little nauseous. I feel sweaty. That's why I like noticing and naming when it comes to things. And if you don't have the proper, not looking for terminology, I always start with noticing. What do you notice if you don't feel well? I notice my stomach feels like when it's on a roller coaster. I notice I feel hotter than I normally do. I notice I'm sweating more than I notice I feel like I have chills. I notice I get into rooms and I get butterflies in my stomach. I notice when people call on me, I my palms get sweaty. I notice when we have these things that are going on, social anxieties, or we feel insecure about things, or when we may not have the term to say this is what I'm experiencing, but the language to say what I notice when I'm in these situations is a starting point to addressing the situation at hand. So I don't need a clinical definition. I don't need you to go to the DSM and give me the whole breakdown on this, that, and the third. I just need you to tell me what you're noticing. When you're in that car, what do you notice? I notice smoke's coming from under the hood. What color is the smoke? The color of the smoke indicates something differently. You know what I mean? Don't worry. I don't need you to tell me what you think it is. Just tell me what you notice. The car shakes when I get over a certain mile per hour. It pulls. Which direction? To the left or the right? I don't need you to tell me what you think it is. Just tell me what's happening. And the more that we have that language to properly identify the situation, we can start to pinpoint what it is and then make the necessary adjustments.
Yes, I love that. And I think this is a particular population of people who kind of go through this process. But then there's another particular population who feels like they do know everything, but find themselves still kind of like stuck in a circle, and they tend to get in their own way. You want to share a little bit about that other side? Because I don't think that those people are the same as the people we just talked about.
Yeah. So more often than not, what I find, it's not what we don't know that's the problem. It's what we think we do know. So so to get that, it's not what we're ignorant of, or that we're unaware of, or that we don't know. That's not the problem. Not knowing is not the issue. It's when you double down on what you think you know can be the problem. So some of us is, if you say, I don't know which way to go, that means I'm open to suggestions because I don't know. I don't know which direction to start in. I don't know where I'm supposed to be at. So help me. But when I tell you I know which way to go, I just can't quite figure it out, that means I've already committed a few things to this process. I've committed that I'm going left to start with. I've committed that this is the mode that I'm going. I've committed that this is the direction I'm in. So I've already blocked off certain ways of new information. Like I'm telling you, I'm saying I can't get from A to B. Okay, so I start making suggestions of how you get. No. I know, but I just can't. Okay, well, you know or you don't. And there are some people out there who the engine lights coming on, the smoke's coming out from under the hood, and they're telling you all the problems that's wrong with the car. Well, then just fix it if you know what's wrong with it. Yeah, well, I tried that, but that didn't work. Okay, well, then maybe you don't know as well as you think you do of what the issue is. Because if you're trying to resolve something and the way you're going about it is not getting the results, not being open to taking in new information, direction, that sort of stuff because of what you know, could be part of the problem.
Yeah, and there's this, well, for people watching on YouTube, there's this wellness wheel. Let me see, will it come up? That I use. Did it pop up?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
On my end. Oh, there's this wellness wheel that I use, and where I go through it with people, ask them to, like, from 1 to 10, figure out, like, where they feel like they are doing well. And this intellectual piece is what we're talking about right here. And for people listening on audio, if you Google wellness wheel, you'll see spiritual, or you can just go on YouTube and see me. But spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, environmental, and financial. And it kind of makes up like all the areas of our lives.
Yeah.
But when you're not able to, like, receive new information, it's really hard because, like I said earlier, life happens. And sometimes we have to make adjustments. We think about this in our friend groups. I tend to have like 25, 30 something year olds who are struggling in some of their social relationships because things have changed, and they're still, like, fixated on that relationship and what it was, and not able to take in new information about, I've changed, they've changed, things are different, this happened, and still operating the same way. What do you think the blockage is with people not getting in their own way and not being able to, like, kind of take in information? Like, is it ego? Like, tell me what you think that's about.
I think there's ego to a degree, but I actually think they're a small group. So there's comfortability and stability in what we know. So if I can rely on this piece of information as what I know, I consider that like a safety blanket, as something to fall back on in situations. I know this to be true, is what I believe. When I start saying I don't know, I'm kind of out here. You know what I mean? Like, so for some people, so let's break these people up, these different groups. So there's some people who they've created a persona that they're supposed to know. So they whatever attachment they have in their mind of, if I say I don't know, that means this. I mean, that means I'm unintelligent. That means I'm unprepared. That means I'm disappointing somebody. That means I'm irresponsible. Whatever judgment they have attached to not knowing something, that's that group. So they don't want to even act like they don't know something because in their mind, they're supposed to know. That makes sense? Yeah. So, yeah.
No. That makes sense. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So that group, they don't want to ever act like they don't know something because they've kind of built who they are on knowing. There's another group who they feel when it comes to what they don't know is that, or why they hold on to what they think that they do, is because it's just familiar. It's if I believe that all men are this, all women are that, I can build some type of stability around the judgments that I make that fall within that narrative. Like I believe, they ain't loyal, or all these dudes ain't ish, or whatever judgment somebody comes up with. Okay, I've built up my viewpoint on it, so I'm just going to hold on to that. So anytime somebody who shows me anything different, it's just a matter of time before you prove me right. And then as soon as you do something that resembles what I already believe, that just doubles down and on me confirming what I already believe. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Like people are like very comfortably uncomfortable dealing with the devil they know than something they don't know. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. And then what I've come to experience with some people is that some people just don't know. So when we do the assessment and we go through programs, it's the thing we refer to as the theory of triple darkness. And so the theory of triple darkness is you don't know that you don't know that you don't know. And so in life, there are the known knowns. So the things that you know about. Like I know apples exist, and I know there's Washington apples, Granny apples, Macintosh apples. Like these are known knowns. I know about apples. I know apples exist. I know about apples. Then there's the known unknowns, the things you know about, but you don't know about them. Like I know physics is a thing, but I don't know physics. So it's a known unknown. Then there are the unknown unknowns. These are the things that you don't know, that you don't even know you don't know them. Like there is maybe a specific type of moon that orbits around Saturn. I have no idea if that exists or not, and I couldn't tell you one thing about it. It's an unknown unknown. Well, we have those things in our behaviors and our personalities. There are things that we do that we don't know that we do them to even address that we're doing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So in the area of triple darkness, there are these people whom you're presenting information to them, which could be beneficial or aware or making them eye-opening, whatever. But they don't know there's a difference between yellow and green. So to explain the difference, which could be beneficial, they first don't know that they don't even know green exists to know that there's another way of looking at something. They're going to figure out a way to make yellow green. That makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I have somebody in mind I'm thinking about.
Yeah, they're going to double down on yellow, and you're trying to explain to them, no, what you mean is green, but they don't even know green is a thing to associate that maybe you could be right. So they're just double and tripling down on yellow. And every time you explain something, new information, new direction, opportunities, resources, they're trying to make yellow green if it kills them. And that's operating in that space of triple darkness. And that density is so dark. You just can't get new information. Light cannot shine through.
I have somebody. I have a friend I'm thinking about. I got to send this to him. But because I feel like, I'm a therapist. I'm not my friend's therapist, but I feel like you have to suffer when you are in this mindset because you don't feel. I feel like this person doesn't feel acknowledged, doesn't feel validated, or feels like no one's listening. Like, how do you think people are affected? Because I don't think these people don't realize that they don't know green. That's the issue. I don't know if they really know that this is happening clearly, that clear.
So these are the unknown unknowns. You don't even know that you don't know it.
Okay,
so
got it.
So I mean, right now what's the favorite food of 6-year-olds in Cambodia? Couldn't tell you. I don't even know if 6-year-olds in Cambodia have a favorite food. You know what I mean? But then me trying to argue what that food is based upon what I knew when I was 6, that's not accurate.
Hey, that's right.
And so there will be people who will take their information, their experience, and they're just going to try to make this that. And you're just like, look, you never even been to Cambodia, but you over here ready to bet the house that you're right on this question, operating with no real information, experience, or anything. So for those people, when they're in that deep, dark, deep space nine, triple darkness area where there's just nothing, no light, no one can hear you scream, like that's just craziness. For those people, I always refer to, you almost have to breadcrumb them. You can't just Star Trek just shoot them all the way in that level of triple darkness. You can't just take them from A to X squared. It don't work. Sometimes, so you have to breadcrumb them from yellow to orange. Like what, you've never been to Cambodia. Have you been to Miami? You know what I mean? Like where how far have you been? And you have to almost get them to the edge of where their understanding is, and then just show them just a little, you got to work with them. Because because the people, like I said, when you don't know what you don't know that you don't know, for these people, it's not necessarily ego or arrogance. Sometimes it's just really simply, I know what I know, and you're trying to convince me of something that I've never even heard of, and you want me to abandon what I believe for something I have zero concept of.
And abandoning what you believe might feel scary for some people.
Yeah, it's foreign. You're telling somebody the way you've studied since you were in elementary school, junior high, high school, and now you get to college and somebody's telling you, no, there's a completely different way to do it. But you're like, but I've been doing it since kindergarten. Yeah, but the way you're doing it, you're getting 60% efficiency. If you abandon the way you're doing it and you give a halfway effort my way, you'll get a 70% efficiency. Like it'll be a night and day difference, but I got to get you to let go of what you've been doing. So sidebar, kind of, if anybody's ever heard me talk before, I kind of do this. So there's an old kind of a phrase. I'll give you a real quick Cliff Notes version. And it was a story of like the father who was talking with his daughter, and that he had like a little plastic pearl looking thing in her hand, and he was offering it to her, and she thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world. And he said, if you give me that pearl back that you love so much, that he gave it to her on her last birthday, it was her next birthday. He said, if you give me that back, I have something greater for you. I have something else for you. I want to trade it for something. She's like, no, I love this pearl. I love this pearl. And she just kept clenching in her fist. No, you can't have it back. Yeah, but if you give me that back, I've got something else I'll put in its place. And birthday after birthday after birthday, she kept keeping the one that she had, until eventually she said, okay. And he swapped out the plastic little pearl for a real, full, beautiful pearl necklace, like, which was way more valuable, which was way more like better, everything than what she had. But she held on to the plastic one with a clenched fist because it was already in her hand. It's what she already knew. And it's what she had already attached herself to. There are a lot of people who are clutching to a plastic pearl of ideas, beliefs, thought patterns, and ways that they execute, which is not serving them. It has no value. They're attached to it because they've had it. But if they're willing to open up their palm and let that little plastic pearl have, they can get some real gems and jewels on the other end if they're willing to open up their mind, open up their belief system, and embrace them. But there are a lot of people who are just clutching that plastic pearl. And you're trying to convince them of what's in your hand behind your back, that triple darkness. They can't see it. They have no idea if it's big or small. You're just trying to get them to buy into new information. But some of them will go down with the ship holding that plastic pearl.
But I'm sure they want more out of life. They want different results, right? And just can't see how to get to that place.
Yeah, they're clutching to what they know. Like I said, it's not what we don't know that's the issue. It's what we think we do know. It's not who we're not. It's who we think we are. If you can get out of your own way, if you could almost amnesia, just start clean with where you are. For a lot of people, and it sounds bad. If we wiped your mind, if you're 30 years old right now, we just wiped your mind of everything. You got to start over. Most people would be in a better position than the life they built up with the life they knew for 30 years. If you got to keep your intelligence or trades or whatever you want, like your abilities, you just wiped what your belief system was. And you said, start over with what you know and what you know how to do. most people would be in a better position because all those beliefs that they're married to, all those plastic pearls that they're clutching to the grave, they wouldn't have them. So they would just look at things at face value. Oh, this don't work. This relationship isn't healthy. I don't like being around these people. This is not where I want to work at. This is not where I want to live. This is not how I want to live. And I'm just going to start doing the stuff that I want to do with no preconceived notion that I should or shouldn't be doing it this way. It's not what we don't know, it's what we do know. It's not who we aren't, it's who we think we are. Letting go of those plastic pearls, letting go of those preconceived notions, letting go of those past ideas and beliefs is that to me is the biggest barrier, more so than the people's ego, more so than the people just not knowing. That group of people, that triple darkness, is a very crowded place, but it's so dark can't nobody see their neighbor. But it is that triple darkness area is a very highly populated place.
No, I believe it. And I think that, for people listening that may have people in their lives like that, I think this is a great segment to help you really think about that person, especially if you're in a relationship, where you have to connect with them on a regular basis, kind of maybe thinking about ways that you can like change your mindset about them. And so you're not getting all bent out of shape and frustrated trying to drive a point to somebody that's really closed off. And because we can't like take this magic pill and erase the past, because you're all about kind of like tangible, like things that people can do. And I would love for you to give my audience some ways that they can realistically think about kind of, not obviously we can't erase, it's always a part of us, but some ways they can open their mind up to like the idea of new information, because I think that's important.
Yeah. So what I like to do is I work with people and I start the life that they're living, the way that they're traveling, they're not on a road. So get off the idea that you're traveling through a neighborhood, your streets and highways, you're on train tracks. So if you don't do something drastic, you are going to be stuck. You're only going where this train track goes. So there's a lot of people who think that they're driving and that they have all these intersections and all these forks in the road and they're making all these decisions. When you are married to clutching the plastic pearl, you are on train tracks. And to get a train to get off its tracks takes a massive force to derail a train. So you're going to have to do something off this track to start to get a new perspective and a new result. So those groups we're talking about, the ones who kind of have the ego, they're in cars. For the ones that, who are the first couple, those people are driving. They can still take new stuff in. They can still kind of, because they're not necessarily married to what they're doing. They just don't want to do something else. They'll look over and be like, yeah, I know that's probably a better route, but for whatever reason, I'm not going to take it. The triple darkness folks don't know there's other routes. So they're just on the train track that's going. So when you're saying, so how's something that somebody can, I need to do something different, how I deal with my money, how I deal with my relationships, how I interact with my children, how I do whatever. We'll figure out where you are and find something that is left. So making that, what does that look like real world? People like relationship stuff, I'll deal with people. And I keep dating the same guy, I keep meeting the same girl. Go out with somebody who does nothing for you. The person who does not hit your radar in any way, shape, or form that approaches you, date that person. Not to get in a relationship, not to sleep with them, nothing committed, nothing. Just have an experience that you wouldn't do normally based on the train track that you're on. I only eat in these places. I eat barbecue and fried chicken. That's my go-to. Go to Chinese just once. Do you know what I mean? With an open mind. Go to like you're literally going to have to do something different. I know these people go the same route to work every day. You know what? Leave 20 minutes earlier and go to work a different way. Take a different freeway. You're going to argue with yourself about this is the way, this traffic, it's this and that. You're going to try to talk yourself into doing it the way you always do it. That's the problem.
I know.
You're going to need to do something other than the way you do it.
I know. I was just talking to my husband the other day because now my mind is open to like other foods. Anybody who follows me on social media would never know that every time we went out, I would always get the cheeseburger and fries, and he would be so mad. And because he would say like, there's so much more things on the menu, but I'm like, I know a cheeseburger and fries is always going to be a cheeseburger and fries. And I was so married to that idea. And I was, now I love like all kind of foods. And I said, wow, I really missed out on like good food because I was so married. And I know we're just talking about food in this example, but it's such a great analogy.
It's the same principle.
Because the cheeseburger and fries was good. It was good, but still, I just feel like I could have experienced more.
Yeah. And when we get so married to this one belief, this one way of doing something, so to get out of it it's got to be when you can still go to your favorite restaurant, so the quality of the food is good. Pick something. You may want to get so maybe the burger is what you want. That's your Old Faithful. Get a different side. Let's give you some degree of comfortability with what you know, and then just add something that you've never had as a side dish. Worst case scenario, you still got a good cheeseburger, but now you got to introduce to calamari instead of fries. Now you got to introduce to, you know what I mean? Like let's just, you got to get you off the train tracks. And so when I try to get people to really drill that in, you have to think train tracks. That this is a preconceived route that you were on that is only going where it can go based upon this system. This train track is not going to automatically make no 90-degree turns and do it. It can't. It's not going to make a quick, abrupt stop. It can't. It's not. There are places that if this track has not been pre-laid, already exist, you can't get there. So the only way you can get is where the predestined track lays out. So there are relationships you can't get into based upon this track. There's money you can't make based on this track. There's experiences you can't have. There's things you can't do, because if you stay clutching this plastic pearl, screaming yellow on this predetermined track, it is a very limited experience. And at that point, you're the conductor, you're the engineer, you're the only reason why you're stuck on it. So it's not going to be, no one is coming to get you off this train track. Like no one's coming to save you. This train, just like how when we drive on roads and we see trains in the distance or along parallel to the highway, we just look at them, see them, and go up and make a left and go about our life. No one's caring about the train, and no one will care about the train that you're on but you. So if you want a different life, a different experience, different relationships, different money, different interactions, you have to think of it as this train is only going to get me to where it goes, not necessarily where I want to be.
Yes. And I do want to be responsible and say, even though Jermaine and I are talking about it this way, this is a very hard thing to do.
Yes.
When you've been very married to a certain idea or have grown up a certain way. For some people, staying on that train tracks was your survival as a child, right?
Yes.
That was the way you got through some things, by keeping it the same way. And I think as we get older, the ways that we've learned to survive doesn't work for us the same way. So then it's like, now Jermaine and I are talking about introducing something foreign to your life. And that can feel like, a whole battlefield inside of trying to add new information. So I always want to be responsible when I discuss change. So it doesn't sound like, it's this pretty little thing, or I just got to do that and that's it. And Jermaine has said on the show before, what can be a puddle you're walking over can feel like the Grand Canyon. Yes. And so I think that's what tends to happen, which is why a lot of times people stop, is because it just feels really hard. And I just want to acknowledge that and say that, because I think when you start the process, if you're not aware that there's that feeling that comes with it, you're going to be like, this isn't for me, right?
Yeah. And so, and I know the way that I speak, sometimes it can feel direct. The thing is, I'm really passionate about people living the life that they want to live. So if somebody's like, this life is not working for me, there's very few positive outcomes for somebody who reaches that place in that space. When you feel like life is not working for you, like when you feel like the experiences you're having are below, like they're valued so low, people make decisions that can be very harmful or problematic when they get in that space. So I'm really big on living the life that works for you. As I said, I remove the judgment of what somebody else thinks your life should look like. I want you to get the most out of your living experience. You know, I'm a firm believer that everybody will give you all their criticisms, but none of them, you have to live with your consequences. I'm not here to tell you how you're supposed to be. You will figure, your life will look like what it looks like based upon your choices and decisions. But I get passionate about it because I want you to maximize your experience. I want you to enjoy your time that you're here. You know, it is a very small drop in the pan that we get in this form, you know, in this celestial play, however you see the world and the universe and spirit and all that. It's a short run. You know, it can feel like it's long when things are going bad, but it's really a short run. And so maximizing and getting the most out of this life is important. And so when it comes to changes, to say I've been doing this for 30 years, for 40 years, for 50 years, so I just don't know if I can change. Okay, but so what's the alternative? Like, you've been telling me you've been unhappy for 20, for 30, for 50 years. You're not winning right now. So to say that what I'm fearful of, what are you worried about losing? And I know for some people, it's just the fear of what they think, how bad things could get if they make changes. But sometimes it's got to be this, maybe if your belief is faith, if your thing is, you're not making just random jumps. So being a responsible part. I'm not talking about betting your house, for a handful of magic beans. I'm talking about making some changes of changing in perspective and the way we look at situations. If we have this belief that if you work a job, then you retire, and then you'll be fine. Our economic system is proven. You know, they said Social Security is going to be gone by 2034. If you're not putting your stuff in place, you may need another job. You need passive income. You may need want to get into investment. Some people are so afraid of money or how money works. They're married to a certain thought. Well, I just need to work this job. Then they got laid off. No pension. Like, okay, so I need you just to try something else. Just learn about stocks, learn about real estate, learn about life insurance, learn just something outside of the way you normally do things. You believe that nobody's happy in marriages. All right, well, let's go on a little run and meet some married folks who've been married over 10 years. Let's see if we can find some happy folks. You know, let's talk to some people who've been married over 25 years, and let's talk about the things they went through and how they overcame them. Let's get a different perspective of how you see marriage. I don't want kids. Kids are this, and this. All right, well, let's talk to some folks who kids are under 5. And let's talk to people who have kids who are 15. And then talk to people who got kids who are over 25. Them are 3 different worlds. When they're 100% dependent upon you, to then they know everything under the sun and they're telling you how to live, to then they appreciate some of the stuff you told them because they realized that more of that was true than wasn't. Get a full perspective of how you view the particular situation. Get off the train track. You know, get some information, some perspective that's outside of the way you currently do things. And you can do that responsibly. So you're not betting everything and risking it all just for a maybe, but you're taking actual calculated, actually, you know, logical steps to getting to a different position. But that's got to start with shifting from an unknown to a known unknown. So you're not going to be, you just need to know there's something else out there on the other side of the fence. Like right now, you don't even know there's a fence to know there's something on the other side of it. I just need you to be aware of the fence and that there is something over there. And then once you realize, oh, there is another way to do it, that's a breadcrumb. Then we get you closer to the fence. Then we get you peering over the fence. Then you can see 5 feet past the fence. Maybe you just lean over and see how far. Then maybe you get 1 foot down and lean back off the fence. Then you jump and get maybe 1 or 2 feet. And then you just gradually kind of see what's out there. And then that gets us off the train track. That gets us shifting from yellow to orange to red. And then you see blue. And then you get yellow and blue. Now you see green. And now you see the different versions of green. And now you start seeing all these different things. And you see money operates differently. Relationships can look different. Parenting has a multiple different ways that you can approach it. Life there's way more food out there than just cheeseburgers and fries.
Or a lot more crayons than just one color.
Way more crayons. Way more crayons.
Oh, such a good analogy. Yeah, and I'm glad that you're so passionate about this. That's why this segment really works well, because we have the same passions. We get people there different ways, but the same, you know, mindset around it. So I think, you know, for people that are listening to this, and, you know, if you're a first-time listener, we have numerous segments that we do this, where we talk about these common struggles that you can find at CelesteTheTherapist.com/podcast. And there's a link where it'll take you to the other episodes. But I think that if anything we ever say resonates, I always say, like, why not try something different if it's not working for you right now?
Yeah.
And so just kind of like be mindful and not allow this just to be kind of like a segment that, like, wow, that felt really good. That was really dope. Like, okay, like, what are you going to do next? Right. And but my clients were like, yeah, like, I probably should do blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, you should, or are you going to go for that walk after the session? Because I think when we are not clear with ourselves, we're not going to do it. So it's like, try to get clear with yourself. If this does feel good, if this does resonate, like, what can I do realistically, like, right now?
Yeah, I'm all about the right now. Just something. And you don't have to run a marathon right now, but at least if you were only going to walk from your driveway to the car, just one lap just walk to the corner and walk back. Mm-hmm. Just something different. Mm-hmm. You know, your whatever the way that whatever that plastic pearl is in whatever area of your life, and you'll know what it is. Someone else doesn't need to come and tell you. Nope. So you'll know what that area is that you are just rigid on, steadfast on. You just don't bend. Just find something else to add.
I had a friend. I remember she told me about this, like, Zoom, like, class. It was during the height of the pandemic. And I was like, oh my God, it's so good. And she's like, yeah, I just been watching it. And eventually she just got motivated to do it. She signed up, but she would watch the class. And she placed herself in that environment. Like, she made that first step. And then she, like, kept going. And I think it's really about, how do I make that first step? That first step may not be like the ultimate goal of, like, being on Zoom, working out, like, sweating. Yeah. Right. But that maybe that's not it. But it could be like, you know what, I'm looking at it, or I stepped outside and took in some fresh air for the day. So, you know, try not to do it like Jermaine or Celeste or whoever else you may look up to do it. Don't think about it that way, but think about it more so about what do I need? What can I do right now? What do I have available to me right now? That's important.
Yeah. I look at it, like I said, date you the person that does nothing for you. They may not be the one, but they'll introduce you to a different way somebody behaves, which will introduce you to a different way that somebody behaves, which will introduce you to a different way somebody behaves. And that first person you date who does nothing for you may be the segue to the third person who does it for you, who's the new person who does it for you. You know, cheeseburger instead of fries, cheeseburger and calamari. All right. Cheeseburger and grilled Brussels sprouts, cheeseburger. And then eventually you're going to try all these different sides. You may go back to the fries, but then swap out the burger. And then at some point, there's not going to be burger or fries on your plate.
Well, in this analogy, I'll still love my burgers, but
it's not every time. Just not every time. I say you're not necessarily getting rid of. Yeah. So that's the thing too. And with these things, it's not necessarily about getting rid of. It's adding.
Yeah.
So it's just more crayons. It's more tools and toolbox. It's not about necessarily just abandoning everything that you had. It's about saying, okay, there are other ways. There are others. And when you get introduced to doing something new, you start really seeing all the other ways there is to do everything else you were doing. Yeah. And you're just like, wow, I could have been, wait a minute, they make this with that. And I didn't know this was a version of this. And where they put this at? And I know we get winded, and I get winded. The brain only looks for answers to the questions that we ask it.
Yep.
So if we're already married to a certain way of thinking and a certain particular way of doing stuff, the brain is only scanning what you've already asked it for. That's why when you drove a Toyota Camry, you would notice other Camrys. But when you went and bought a Nissan Altima, all of a sudden your neighborhood is filled with Nissan Altimas. Now, they've always been there, but your brain had no reason to register a Nissan Altima before you bought one. Now, all of a sudden, you tried a Jamaican food for the first time. Oh, that's cool. Now, all of a sudden, you notice all the Jamaican restaurants within 10 miles of where you live. Your brain never had a reason to register a Jamaican restaurant before. It's only answering the questions that you ask it. So once you start putting in new questions, new perspective, you're going to start seeing a whole new world in the world you already live in. And that's where you start having, now you're going, 2-3 different Jamaicans, but now you meet a couple new people. Now you meet some Jamaicans. Now all of a sudden you start having all these new experiences, all these new relationships, all these new ideas, just by getting out of the way you used to do things.
I love it. This is good. And like we said earlier, for people like who may need a place to start, Jermaine does a really good DISC assessment, which you can also find a segment where we actually kind of dissected my DISC assessment. And I think for people that kind of, I feel like, with social media, people, everybody's not as authentic, but people that know me, when they look at my DISC assessment, they're like, dang, that is you. So I think that, if that's something that you want to figure out, a great place to start is the DISC assessment. Really amazing tool that so many people I know have utilized and have found to be helpful. It gives them a name. It actually also gives some validation for people who, meet somebody for the first time in this test and they get explained some things they may have thought but never really had language for. Yeah. Because we didn't all grow up with a therapist like my kids. So it's a nice thing to have on board with you trying to learn you. Yeah. It's important. Anything else you want to say to the people?
No, and if anybody, if you're interested in the assessment, you can just find me at a Team Effort Program at gmail.com. T.E.A.M EFFORT at Gmail. And your assessment comes with a 23-page report printout of you. So so I know there's a bunch of variations of the test out there, and a lot of them kind of give some of them a vague example. I particularly like this one because it shows who we are when things are fine, but it also shows who we are when we get under stress and pressure. Mm-hmm. And that gap is very important when we're dealing with ourselves. But for anybody out there, just importance of self-awareness without judgment, just looking at how we operate, and that for what we're talking about, just understanding it's not what you don't know, it's what you do know. Mm-hmm. And it's not who you're not, it's just who you think you are.
Yeah. And that 23-page assessment comes with the actual explanation. So it's not just the handout that you get.
Yeah. We go over it. We go through the pages and we really break it down. So it's not like you're just like, well, here you go. Good luck. We really go through it. And so when you're done, you have like I said, the full diagnostic of how you operate.
Yeah.
Without good, bad, right, or wrong. This is how I am. Mm-hmm. And if I keep what works for me, keep all of it. Or if I need to make changes, we can put programs together for that as well. Set up individual systems that deal with procrastination, communication, scheduling, all kinds of stuff that just come up in life. That when you have that book to start with of yourself, it applies to everything. How we deal with money, how we deal in relationships, how we deal in parenting, all that sort of stuff. Because it's our operating system. And so it's good to know how we operate.
Yes. Thank you so much. Always great time. I appreciate you, your time, what you bring to this episode. Thank you.
Thank you. I always do this, and I tell you all the time, my favorite person in mental health.
Thank you.
I always love and appreciate doing this with you.
Thank you. All right, guys. So we'll be back next month, and thank you all so much. Don't forget, if you are not following me on YouTube, you can actually watch this segment. I love watching podcast episodes on TV because it feels like I'm watching the show. So if you ever want to check me out on YouTube, all of my episodes are recorded on video. So thank you. Bye.